Well, good day, everyone. Welcome along to round two. Apologies for the technical problems we had in the first version of this live stream just a few minutes ago. We've decided to start from scratch, as you can see, and hopefully now the issues have been resolved. Touch wood and everything else. Now, for those who missed the introduction previously, this is Holy Week now. We are, for those of people of faith, people who are Christians, this is Holy Week. It's the lead up to Easter, Good Friday, Easter Sunday. One of the big focuses, obviously, is the whole question of suffering and death, and then the ultimate hope of resurrection. And so it seems entirely appropriate today that we have this opportunity to speak with and hear from my special guest, Jenny Chapman. And Jenny is here to share her experience and her family's experience of suffering and loss, and also, I would suggest to you, profound hope in the midst of what could only be described as a very, very difficult challenge, the loss of a child. Speaking as a father myself, it's not even something I want to contemplate, let alone can imagine what that is like to go through. So I think we're really privileged to have with us here today our special guest. So welcome, Jenny. It's great to have you with us again, a second time.
Thanks, Brendan. Thank you so much for having me on. It's always a privilege to share Tara's story with people, and I'm always a bit nervous that people see it as a tragedy from start to finish, but it's not the part of the story that I want to share. My husband Eden and I, we live in Rotorua. We've got 5 daughters. We've been married for coming up 20 years, and it's our story with Tara is very much our whole story, and that's been a huge part of our coping, is that it's all of us together. It's not just me isolated from him or isolated from the kids. It's all of us traveling this journey together.
Tell me, her anniversary recently, it was what, a week and a half ago?
Yeah.
And were you able to go to the graveside? Because we're in lockdown here in New Zealand. So did that add to the difficulty?
So it was her 6th anniversary. Here she is here. It was her 6th anniversary on the 28th of March, and traditionally we do head along to the cemetery, and we pop along quite frequently, just to visit and say some prayers and tidy around this place. But we couldn't this year, and I was a little bit worried that it would be quite hard, because usually we actually probably focused on how to remember Tara in an even happier way just at home together. So we made a special place for Tara on our kitchen table, and so she was a real focal point of the day. And we had a statue of Our Lady, which has been quite an ongoing story. It's Our Lady take 4. We've had Our Lady broken, we've had Our Lady stolen from the cemetery. So we had her at home, and we just did what we could to focus on Tara, and focus on each other and focus on God while being at home. But it was different, and there was a challenge to it, but we took that challenge head on.
Tell me, let's go back. So let's go back before the awful reality of a diagnosis or anything else. How would you describe in a couple of sentences your family life before the intrusion of this event into your life?
Incredibly typical, incredibly normal Kiwi existence. 3 kids. We both, my husband's a school principal and I worked for him, and we just were plodding along, just doing everyday life, just plodding along, doing our normal thing that all Kiwis do. And it just came out completely out of the blue.
Tell me, was there a moment you thought to yourself, or were there indications where you thought something's not right before you even had a diagnosis? Were there things that you began to notice and that perhaps made you begin to wonder what was happening?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, it's quite a short story because it happened quite quickly. So I'd just finished making cupcakes with the 2 little kids, and I was playing on the floor, playing blocks with Tara and Eliza. And I said, Tara, and she looked up and she went cross-eyed.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's pretty strange. And I mentioned it to Eden when he got home, and he said, I'll take her to the optometrist tomorrow, because we both thought, as teachers, we'd never seen that happen. And it was just a flashing cross-eye. It didn't stay like that. And he took her to the optometrist, and they said, oh, it's just a squint. try some hobby glasses, and we went, no, we'll pursue this. And we ended up paying privately to see an ophthalmologist and pushing for an MRI because the only indication was this intermittent squint. They said we need to wait 3 months for an MRI because she would be an MRI sound like, and chatted her through it. And so she had an MRI the next week. And that day we knew it was a we knew it was a brain tumour on her brain stem, a growth on her brain stem from that day, which anyone would tell you is fairly bad news from the get-go.
Yeah. Tell me what was the initial prognosis? What were you told at that point?
So from the MRI, the very next day we were sent up to Starship. From then we had, so that was a Wednesday MRI, Thursday to Starship. We didn't have any more testing until the following Tuesday. Then it was a whole another 6 days until we got the actual diagnosis, which they said 100% terminal. She may have 4 weeks, she may have 10 months, she may have a year.
Yeah.
But yeah, they said there's absolutely no chance that she could survive, and it was inoperable because it was on her brainstem. So we knew straight away that it was terminal.
So tell me, in that moment, you are given what could only be described probably as the most devastating news that probably a parent could ever hear. What are your feelings? What do you begin to wonder how we're going to cope? Do you think, did we do something that could have prevented this? What's going through your mind in an instant like that?
Well, by the time we got to the formal diagnosis, we'd pretty much come to the conclusion that that's what it was going to be, because, seeing the MRI image of a growth on the brainstem, it doesn't take a actual brain surgeon to tell you what the outlook for that is going to be. So we'd had probably 2 weeks to pretty much get to that point that we knew that was going to happen. So in actual fact, the hardest day of that process was the day when we had the MRI and we saw it for the first time. Yeah. And it just felt like the floor fell out between us. We were just absolutely in shock. And at that particular time, we didn't know how we were going to get through it. Yeah. And we just didn't. We just thought, this is not something that we ever thought could happen, and it was our worst case scenario that we had dreaded from leading up to the MRI, but you just tell yourself, oh, it won't be that. No, there's no way to be that. It'll be something else, So
how did you then begin the process, or was Tara herself very aware at that point as well what was going on?
So being a 6-year-old, she just carried on playing and doing pictures and normal 6-year-old stuff. And we got one compulsory counselling session with a terminal diagnosis, is all you get from the hospital.
Wow.
And they said, look, you've got one counselling session. The biggest thing that we can tell you is 75% of marriages split up in a situation like this. The best thing you can do for your other kids is stay together, so focus on that. And we said, okay, we've got that one. What do we do with Tara? What do we say to her? What do we say to the other kids? And we got perhaps the best advice in that session, and that was answer honestly in as few words as you can. Yeah, okay. And so that's how we stuck. And every question that came up, we answered completely honestly and as simply as we could. Yeah.
So I was actually going to ask you about that, the question of, obviously this is a huge stress on a marriage. And some couples, I would imagine, would probably gravitate into themselves as individuals. How did you overcome that particular potential threat, and how would you describe this journey that you went on in relation to your marriage and that relationship?
Well, something that Eden said to me from day one is, he said, we need to be strong for the kids. We need to be a unified front for the kids, be strong for them. But we need to be able to break down with each other. Yeah. And we were really free to do that from the start. And allowing each other the space and freedom to grieve, which from that first day it was grieving, in our own individual way was really important. I'm Catholic, Eden's not, but he values it. That's important to me, and I respect that that's not a part of who he is. And it's about giving each other the freedom to express the grief in the way that they need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me, you're now on this journey. You didn't ask for it. You never planned for it. But you're now on this journey. So first of all, how long did that journey from diagnosis to her passing last? And how would you describe the journey? What looking back now, what are your thoughts about that journey?
So from diagnosis until the day that she died was 10 and a half months, which was obviously the longer time frame that the specialist gave us. And I'll say a couple of things that Tara said during that time. She said, cancer is so boring. Because there is so much waiting around. And so much waiting around and so much just being a part of a medical system. But so much of it was actually normal and so much of it was extraordinary as well. We did some amazing family trips together. Incredible groups of people from around New Zealand fundraised for us, and we did some incredible family things together. And it was all about our girls all being together and us spending that time with Tara. But that was also a privilege because we could both step back from our jobs. Yeah. We could both be up in Starship for 3 months while Tara had treatment, and all of the girls could be there, whereas most other families, was one child with one parent. And I can't imagine how hard that would be, splitting up a family in a time like that.
Tell me, what was helpful during that process, do you think? Were there outside things that nurtured and supported you through that? Were there things you did as a family? What were some of the things that you think were helpful in ensuring that journey didn't become, I guess, just a decline into despair, I guess?
The most helpful things were the practical support that people offered, and it was the people who just saw a need and fulfilled that need. So, for example, a whole group of people from our church just organised meals to be delivered, but it was given with such humility that they were just turned up on the freezer. There was no meeting the person and thanking them or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was so thought out that it was just about truly giving and expecting nothing.
Yeah.
That was amazingly helpful. People turning up and doing laundry, people just sitting and being with us and being with Tara and genuinely wanting to talk to her and spend time with her. And it was all the people around that made the difference, and the prayers and the messages and the connection with people and the connection with the church and the community were the things, and particularly our families made a huge difference. We had people, close family members, move to be closer to us to help us, and a big part of that was freeing us up to be able to be there for our other children, because it's incredibly hard for siblings to be in that time. It's, really hard.
So did you ever have moments, though, where people perhaps didn't quite know what to say, or, I think there's a tendency, and particularly in a culture where we don't see a lot of suffering because of the advances and technological advances we have. We certainly don't see a lot of human death. There's not as much as we used to up close. And so I think sometimes we perhaps don't know what to do in these profound moments of suffering, challenge, grief, and everything else. Was that an issue, or? Yeah.
I found the most challenging was when people couldn't just sit in space and just sit and offer you the time to just be okay with you feeling sad or frustrated or whatever it was. But it was when they had to fill every space, whether it was with advice or their own story about themselves or whatever it was. When people offered suggestions about why Tara might have gotten sick, like, oh, do you think it might have been the scans that you had when you were pregnant, or things like that, or advice on how you could cure it with a lemon diet and things like this, that, you know, and but to me, I figured out, and I think by the grace of God, actually, that I could just go, that's you trying to offer comfort. You're just not quite sure how to do it.
Yeah, that what a grace that is, because I think it's that temptation, is that we want to fix things, and especially big things. We want to fix them for people. I just, my personal story from my own experience, I had a friend of mine who died of cancer about 5 years ago, and I remember going to see him not long before he passed, and he was in a difficult amount of pain because I was switching over pain meds. It was just the in-between phase. And I remember getting back to where I was staying at a motel. I went back to where I was staying, and I was just so frustrated because I desperately wanted to actually save him, basically, was what I realized. The more I thought about it, I wanted to rescue him from this. And the most profound moment of realization was when I just, clearly what I would describe as the voice of God saying to me, who told you it was your job to actually to save him? And it was hard, but it was so important, and it made me realize how often we are very ill-equipped in the face of these things, right?
Yeah, and I think in this modern time, we're used to being able to access medical help and expect that the help will be there, and people found it really distressing, including us, that there were no answers.
Yeah.
You know, and there was a lot of disbelief around that from people, and certainly their own distress did come out in some strange ways at times. But it was a very interesting time. Dramatic situations can bring out some people who are a wee bit too interested in drama, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Tell me, how did you find that journey emotionally? Were there, for yourselves, were there moments where you thought, we just have to prepare ourselves for the inevitable end of this journey? Or are you thinking, hey, there's hope? No, there's not hope. There's hope. What's the journey like for you?
Oh, you cut out a wee bit there, Brendan.
I was just asking, what was that journey emotionally like for you? Were the whole time, were you prepared for the inevitable end of that journey, or were there moments where you thought, oh, maybe, you know, things are going to get better? Are you is it a roller coaster? What's going on?
Yeah, well, we had the complicating factor of 3 separate times we were told that Tara was at the end and that she was going to die. So, several times we had kind of prepared for that. And then she got better, which was huge for us, obviously, huge blessing. So each time we'd go, this is it, people would gather around. And then she'd rally, and she went back to school, and so it was an absolute emotional roller coaster. But we got really good at just getting up and seeing how Tara was and taking each day at a time, and sometimes it was each hour at a time, because that was how changeable it was. But it really did take an emotional toll on all of us. But at the time, we just had to do the process, take care of her, take care of the family. And to a certain extent, our dealing with that wasn't until after she died. And I remember feeling really aware of that at the time. I was like, I know I'm really upset about this, but I just don't have time to be upset, because I need to enjoy having fun with Tara and having fun with her sisters. And consequently, after she died, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder after she died. Which I had some incredible therapy and worked through those things. And I think it's pretty reasonable to have post-traumatic stress from coping, from essentially caring for your own child at home. And I really wish that other people who have met along the way through Child Cancer Foundation and things saw that as kind of an expectation. If you've lost a child, then it's reasonable that you get some therapy, but it's not part of our medical system. If you lose a child, there's no automatic help provided.
Tell me, we've talked a little bit about Tara on this journey, but this is ultimately her journey at the heart of your journey, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the Tara moments that you have on that journey that you look back on where she was present in a way that you would see as profoundly beautiful and important?
She was an absolutely amazing kid. Yeah, okay. I have to prioritize. All right. um, so I'll start from the things that weren't great. So before she got sick, when she was 4, she was the most challenging 4-year-old child you've ever met in your life.